Hello, beautiful world, and thank you for joining us in an episode of the Class Clown series, IELTS edition. We have Sina behind the camera, our wonderful producer. I'm still Sarah, and this is Sam from Fast Track ESL.
Hi, Sam.
Hello.
It's good to be here.
How are you doing today?
Not too bad. Thanks for asking.
Wonderful.
So, today we're going to do another flipped IELTS interview. You ready, Sarah?
Super ready.
All right, let's do this. Okay, in this first part of the test, I want to ask you a few questions about yourself.
Okay.
Let's talk about social media. What social media sites do you frequent?
The social media sites that I frequent these days would be Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I don't use Twitter that much.
Why not?
I feel like the other platforms that I use are a little user-friendly, a little more user-friendly, whereas Twitter I feel is a little more political, and I'm just not familiar with that structure.
I see. Now, how much time do you spend on these sites?
Per day?
Yeah.
Wow. I would say maybe an hour in total, because I post for my own channel and stuff.
Okay. And what type of information do you disclose on those sites? What kind of information do you share with other users?
I try not to be too personal because that brings up like privacy issues. So I would just say I keep it professional. If it's personal, it's about food, restaurants I visited, friends that I know, places that I go around the city.
I see. And what things keep you coming back to these websites or apps?
Well, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but platforms like Facebook, they try to pull at your heartstrings, you know? Like, this is what you did 5 years ago. And then it shows you pictures from your past and then your friends and your family in those pictures. So you get all nostalgic feelings sometimes. So they try to keep it a little humane too. I like that part about Facebook. And Instagram is just very catchy, you know, like in its timings for like other friends' posts, and then they put in sponsored ads that can be either relevant to you or just interesting looking.
Great. Now, in this second part of the test, I'm going to give you a card. On this card, there's some questions. I want you to think about the questions for 1 minute, and then I'm going to have you talk about it for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So I want you to tell me something that you bought recently for your living space. So here's the question.
Okay.
You can take notes. You have 1 minute.
Okay. Okay, so just to give some tips for you guys out there, as mentioned in previous episodes or following episodes, you want to keep it point form because writing actual full-on sentences are not good. And then ask yourself some questions or write down questions, so if you run out of time during part 2, you can look at the questions and answer them for yourself. So I'm listing what I bought, when and where. So a week ago, Sheridan Gardens. Oxygen. Why I chose it is because it's actually very good for the air inside. And it looks good and pet friendly. Pet friendly. Kid friendly.
And that's 1 minute.
Thank you. Here you
go.
go.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Please continue speaking until I tell you to stop, and don't worry if I stop you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, something that I bought recently for my living space was a spider plant. I'm not sure if you've heard of spider plants, but it's actually common to have in your household, and there are a few good reasons why. First of all, before I talk about that, I bought the spider plant about 3 months ago, and I got it at Sheridan Gardens or Sheridan Nurseries, which is a franchise. You can find them all around Ontario. Yeah, so that's where I got it, and when I got it, I was actually advised to buy a spider plant for my living space because based on the seasons, it's not convenient to open up your window and get fresh air all the time, right? So this actually helps to clean the air in your living space. And one benefit of it is that it is kid-friendly and pet-friendly. So if you have a dog and he likes to munch on your plants, then he won't die. And then kids can also, I don't know, be around it. And if they happen to ingest it, then they won't have to go to the hospital. So those are all very good things to know. And, you know, just having plants in your home can create that kind of peace that you usually find outdoors when you're walking in the forest or you're going through a park, jogging through a park perhaps. So yes, adding a little bit of greenery inside is visually pleasing, but it's also healthy for your mental state and your physical state as well. Speaking of living spaces, I do like to keep things, you know, kind of minimalist. I don't like to overcrowd the space, and I think it looks cleaner also. Very hygienic. People coming in would think that, oh wow, this place is well designed, but it's not too crowded, so I feel clean and I feel cozy.
Thank you. All right. So you talked about a plant which you bought for your living space. Now,
Yes.
in this third part, I'd like to ask you a few more general questions.
Okay.
Now, why do people choose to purchase a lot of things for their home?
That is a very good question. And of course it depends on the person. What do we consider to be a lot? For a hoarder, you know, it's definitely a lot of things, right? But if you're talking about appliances, like kitchen appliances or entertainment pieces for the living room, I could say they would choose to buy a lot because variety is good. It's good to have a variety of things. Like, it's nice to have a TV, but it's also nice to have a PlayStation. And it's nice to have a PlayStation, but it's also nice to have a Nintendo Switch too, right? And then in the kitchen, you can have a kettle, for example, but you might want a French press too, because someone else might like French pressed coffee.
True. Now, do you think buying pricey things makes a home look better?
That is a good question, and I think it depends on the person's creativity and ability to use the things in their home to create a nice living space. But I'm going to say yes, because money can buy you better quality. And better quality usually takes more finesse with knowledge of design. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Now, why do some people not care about their home decor?
I could say that some people don't care about their home decor because they're busy and they don't spend a lot of time where they live. They're usually in the office, or they're traveling, or they have a very big social life. Whereas other people who do live in their home for very long periods of time, they'd want to be surrounded by beautiful things and things that make them feel safe and secure.
Okay. And do you think homes will look different in the future?
Well, if the Jetsons provided an accurate picture of future homes, then I could say yes. I think homes are constantly evolving. Architecture, we can still enjoy architecture and interior design of the past, you know, like the modern look, classical, Baroque, for example. So we can appreciate the past, but I think in the future things will change.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This is the end of the IELTS
Oh,
Speaking
wow. Okay, that was fast.
Scene.
Woo! All
That was
right.
a quick one, right? It felt quick.
Did it feel quick?
I don't know, what time did we start? We started at
It's
11:07?
I think it was about 8 minutes the entire test.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah. What do you think?
Well, I gotta say, These are familiar topics. I would think they're familiar topics, speaking about the home, social media, and then like purchasing habits. So while it seems to be familiar, I did feel like I had to push the thoughts out a little more and extend them a little more. So for part 2 answers, it is nice to extend and make your notes properly. I put down 3 points. I could have put down a few questions, but yeah, being able to kind of switch the gears a little bit, as I did in part 2. Maybe you saw. Yeah, being able to switch the gears is important. It's an important skill.
So one of the things that I always tell my students is that it's normal to be more comfortable with certain topics and for some topics to be a little difficult, right? For me or for that student.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea always when you're preparing for the test to put yourself in that situation where you're given those, curveballs, those questions that you really don't want to deal with. So that's always a good idea.
Yeah.
Now I have a few comments to share with you, Sarah.
Oh, yay.
All right.
Bring it on.
Now, in part 1, I liked how sometimes you started your answers with sort of like a topic sentence. Now, I know that we have topic sentences in writing, but my first question was, what social media site do you frequent? And you said something like, well, the social media that I frequently visit is...
Yeah.
And you bought yourself some time to think about what you were going to say.
Oh, yes.
So that's a little nice strategy that you used. And you also commented on the questions. For example, sometimes you started your answers by saying, well, I'm not sure if you noticed.
Oh, yes.
Or, as I'm sure, what some other things that students could say are, as I'm sure you already know.
Yes.
And then you follow it up with your answer. So that's a nice little strategy there.
Yeah, it's a nice little trick.
It is. I love it.
Fillers are your friends.
Yes.
Yes.
Friendly fillers.
All right. Part 2.
All right.
Part 2, what I really like about Sarah's response is that she's not speaking too fast. She's speaking very slowly, yet confidently. So even if she does have pauses in there, which we all do, they're not really noticeable. They sound natural, and she sounds spontaneous.
Right.
So if you go ahead and listen to her monologue in part 2 again, you will notice that she is not speaking fast, or she's not trying to hide her pauses. That's what you should be doing as well.
Yeah. I mentioned this before, but I sometimes tell my students to watch Obama giving a speech, right? How slow and, thoughtful he is with what he's saying, what he's about to say, right? He's a great example for students to watch.
Exactly.
Students also, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the expression quiet confidence. So Obama has this, and very powerful speakers have this, because while you should show your confidence through what you say, your demeanor is also very important. So quiet confidence. You don't have to show it, you just have to know it. Sorry. Dr. Seuss in the house. Okay.
All right. As for part 3, I love how you gave plenty of examples. So you weren't just talking hypothetically or theoretically, you were also giving real tangible examples to prove your points. So when you were talking about all the things that people buy for their homes, you actually talked about a TV, a PlayStation, a Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
And all of that makes the response much more understandable for whoever's listening. And I love that strategy too. Well done. That's amazing.
Thank you. Just another tidbit of self-awareness. Now, I'm an English teacher and test prep teacher, but that's besides the point. As a good, effective communicator, it's good to know what you tend to do that can be seen as weaknesses. So for me, and in some of the episodes that we did for IELTS so far, I'm not the kind of person to usually give tangible examples. Like, I'm very abstract and conceptual, but it's not logical to know or think that the person that's listening to you will understand. So examples are that thing, that staple your evidence to the ground, you know? So.
Maybe that's why we're doing the whole joke thing with the action and the scene,
Yes,
right?
yep.
You're playing a different role,
Yes.
right? And you can use that to your advantage because let's say you do not have actual personal experiences in the world of sports, but you can always talk about sports, right?
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. People do tend to tune out when you're talking, you know, without any tangible examples.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, and it's even harder to talk about things that way. So when you're talking through an example, it's easier to get the message across, and that's what you really need to focus on in part 3, especially.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This was a wonderful time.
Extremely useful episode.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Very useful. And thank you all out there for joining us, and we'll see you again for another IELTS lesson. Before we go, don't forget to check the descriptions box below for any words you don't know. You'll see the pronunciation key and the definition for it. And another juicy tidbit to come in another episode. Which one? Just wait and find out.
All right. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Take care. Happy learning.
Happy learning.